Welcome to Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed. Get ready to dive into the world of nonprofit leadership and sustainability, where the passion and unstoppable dedication of those making a real impact are celebrated. With your host, Jarrett Ransom, get ready to explore inspiring stories and game changing strategies of nonprofit leaders from across the sector. In this season, we're focusing on critical management challenges that are key to the long-term success of nonprofit organizations. Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed is your go-to podcast for no-nonsense, in-depth conversations with the real-life superheroes of the nonprofit sector. Get ready to unleash your inner nerdiness and learn how to navigate and overcome the challenges that help build stronger, more sustainable organizations. Now, let's dive in and harness the collective power of our nonprofit networks to create lasting change.
Welcome back. Whether this is your first time tuning in or you're a returning listener, I am so glad you're here. And I'm excited to introduce you to today's guest, Erica Scott. Erica is an HR professional who brings a fresh perspective on fierce leadership, the importance of psychological safety, and how vulnerability and enrichment play vital roles in our personal and professional lives. She also speaks candidly about what it means to lead through crisis and offers practical, actionable tips on how to foster community within your team, even during these challenging times. Before we jump in, a big thank you to this season's podcast sponsors, Bloomerang and the Fundraising Academy at National University. Your support makes these meaningful conversations possible, and I'm truly grateful. Brace yourself for a thought-provoking and empowering conversation with Erica Scott. Well, hello there, Erica, and I'm so thrilled to have you here. For all of you listening, and maybe you're watching this on YouTube, but I am thrilled to have with us today Erica Scott. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
I am excited to have you. You know, I used to be terrified of HR, human resources, because I thought that's kind of like going to the principal's office for a work environment. So for our listeners that might not be familiar with you and what you do, would you share a little bit, Erica, about your role in HR and then also, how that relates in the nonprofit field?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. So my role, HR, contrary to popular belief, is I go in and I create cultures and workspaces that are fun, engaging, and that you want to be in, right? So I look at bringing you on board and finding the most amazing jobs so you can do the best work, all the way to, okay, what do I do here? What does it matter? What's the next step for me? And, sometimes we do let people go, but we don't talk about that part. But my goal is to really make it fun, engaging. You spend 8 hours a day, every day, probably more than your spouse or your partner there. Let's make it really fun and engaging and enriching to your life. So I go in and build workspaces like that.
Hearing you answer it that way, I wish I had that response given to me before I started my career, right? Because again, just to think of HR as the principal's office. Like I went from a school setting to a work setting and thinking, ooh, I never want to be called into the HR's office, never want, an email or a phone call. But I love how you really lean into building culture, building the team and just building that space from a really positive lens is what I'm hearing. And so I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, let's dive in. This whole season is around leadership, sustainability, the intersection of those, and of course, our current state of affairs, right? Like really the world that we're in right now, the landscape that we're in, ever changing, ever evolving. So let's start off. Would you share what does leadership and sustainability look like for you, Erica, today? Considering our current landscape, considering all of the, changes and the navigations that we're forced to face, what does that look like for you?
Gosh, this is an ever evolving and changing answer to this question. And so, today, especially in the nonprofit world, it looks really, really different from before, even going back to COVID, which we don't want to talk about that. We're dealing with a lot of external pressures and people are just really burnt out. And the consistent message I'm hearing from people is they're looking for more. They're looking for more from their workplaces. They're looking for more purpose, more clarity, more equity, and more humanity. So working in HR, I've seen firsthand how leadership really can make or break sustainability, right? And I'm not, the jump is to let's talk about financial sustainability, right? That's
Right.
important. I'm not saying that, but I'm also saying people sustainability, right? So can your team stay healthy? Can they stay motivated? And can they stay connected to the mission? And that really starts with leadership that's fearless, yes, but also being really thoughtful. And it's about being bold enough to make hard decisions, but balanced enough to bring people along with you. One of my favorite, I listened to the speaker of CFO from a larger organization, and it was about this topic. And that person said, the things that you do when things are hard is what matters, right? That's what matters. And it means right now making choices that don't just get you through the week, don't just get you through that quarter. Woo, we made it through quarter end, right? But it's also about building trust and longevity. It means let's not do burnout culture. I know people love to say it. Oh, I'm so busy, I'm productive, things like that. But it also means making sure you're moving people forward so they feel supported in the work, emotionally, structurally, physically, so they can be engaged and productive. And if they don't have those things, they can't do their best work. So it's a balance, right? And you have to look at risk and you have to look at all the factors. But what's the cost if you don't look at those things? You ignore those voices. You push for change too fast. You lose the trust of your team. Leaders have to hold all of that, right? So I think it's about clarity in your values, your policies, your expectations, and modeling what you want people to see. And how do you take care of each other? And so I think a lot of times leadership models that. Please take your PTO. Yes, I messed up and I'm going to own it and it's okay. And really listening. And so it's not really sustainability. It's not a checklist. It's about leaders who lean in. This is the time to lean in. And I tell people right now in leadership, this is the time to show what you're made of. It really, really is. And people are looking to you to make sure those spaces are safe and they can make an impact, but also are inclusive and can be here for the long term as well.
Whew, so many good call outs, like juicy. And I really appreciate you leaning into the people sustainability because you're right. It is a quick jump to financial. And I've had another guest come on and talk about the program, like the impact sustainability, right? And so you're right. We all kind of define sustainability different. And I appreciate all of your call outs there. And it really resonated with me, Erica, when you said, people are looking for more, right? Like we're looking for likely more connection, more empathy, more, just more knowing that we're going to be okay. And okay is different, right? The definition of what that okay is constantly changing. And I'm curious, you use the word fierce leadership, right? So how would you define your leadership style? How do you show up in this space?
I love this question because, I don't necessarily know if I put a term to it, and I'm going to do it today. So first I
Okay.
started with human-centered. Then I started with get her done leadership, because I say that word a lot. And then to your point, I said fierce. I'm like, this is my Sasha Fierce leadership, right? And the way I would describe that is, and for those that don't know, Beyonce, it's grounded in being really intentional and thinking beyond the moment. So, leadership, yes, you drive outcomes, you get stuff done, right? You make things happen, but you also get to shape the experience of people. And so for me, it's really about, I look at it in three ways. It's my leadership style. So it's really about how I make people feel. And that's the core of my leadership. So the first thing I focus on is psychological safety. And that's a newer term, but to break it down, do people feel safe with you? Do they feel safe to disagree? Can they ask questions? Can they raise concerns? Are you going to get mad at me if I challenge you without fear? So if you don't have psychological safety, they can't take risks. They're too scared to take risks. They're too scared to share their ideas with you. When there's psychological safety, they innovate. That's what people want. They want people to grow. They want this openness and things like that. But in order to do that, I don't want it to be hard for you to tell me things. And one of the things when I'm coaching leaders, I tell them is your people, you hope that they're not going through a hard thing. but you hope that you've created enough safety and trust for them to tell you about the hard thing so you can support them, right?
Yeah.
So I start with that. And then I would say the second thing is, and this is going to be polarizing because I think the term engagement is reactive. So I say, I focus on the term enriching. Are you
Okay.
enriching people's lives? That's not just transactional, right? Did you get this project done? Do you know how to do it? Do you feel like you have a belong? All of those things that, Gallup does all the engagement surveys, which are great. But for me, enrichment's a deeper way and it's more lasting. How are you helping people see beyond the circumstances or the parameters of their current role? Am I helping them stretch? Am I helping them be more confident? Giving them tools, resources, perspective. I want them to see beyond me. I always tell people I am grooming my successor and I want you to do it better than me. I really do. So that's how you enrich the lives of your people that report to you. And then I think the biggest thing, and I was talking to somebody 2 weeks ago, they called me, and I always take it as a badge of honor and with a tremendous amount of respect when someone reaches back to me and says, hey, I would love to get your mentorship and guidance on something. So somebody did. And, I loved you as my leader. You had a conversation with me about my potential. But one of the biggest things that they remembered about me, and we laughed about it, was a moment of vulnerability I had in front of her. It was funny and silly. It was basically like I was trying to jam this thing in the freezer at the workplace, and it was this big box. And she came up behind me and she's like, let's take the individual things out, Erica, and put it in the freezer. I'm like, oh, okay, you could do that. But for her, it humanized me. For her, it showed vulnerability, and that stuck with her in addition to all the other things. So I would say that's my Sasha Fierce leadership style. And I manage everybody equally different because people need different things from you. And you have to be adaptable and adjust based on what they need.
So true. So I captured those as psychological safety, the enrichment, and vulnerability. And
Right.
each of those three, you had, gosh, so many like amazing stories that really do humanize all of it, right? Like and that's what we are. We're humans, we're people, we're having human people experiences. So I appreciate your answer on that. And thank you, because you just, identified your leadership style. Look at that. You did it. All right. What about, I'm curious, there's a lot of things changing right now, a lot of adaptations. Is there an example or anything that comes to mind for you, Erica, of how you've worked with organizations through this adapting time, right? So is there an example in particular that comes up where you have worked through adapting your nonprofit organization to the current economic and social landscape? And for you, I'm going to say even open-ended, right? If this is around the people sustainability. So really, what has come up, and is there a specific example that comes to mind?
Yeah, there's so many examples. I'm the people person in the party. So, but I always start with, you look at what's going on around everyone right now. There's a lot of social unrest. People just don't feel like they have a lot of agency over what's going on right now. And so seeing a lot of burnout, and people are feeling very isolated and disconnected. And it breaks my heart that we're still kind of in that place, because that's exactly what happened during COVID, right? We all had to be at home, we had to be behind these screens and things like that. And so what I'm seeing in a lot of nonprofits is the mission is there, right? They are there for a reason, right? But people don't necessarily feel like they've always had a voice in how the mission was carried out for them, right? And so people are really longing for spaces of connection, community, coming together and saying, I'm not alone in this, because we really aren't. But it feels that way when you're sitting at your desk on Zoom all day, right? And so a current organization I work with, and we created an employee resource group, ERGs, right? You hear about them all the time. And it really was in response to, I kept hearing that people wanted community. They wanted to feel grounded. They wanted to feel that sense of agency and reconnect with each other in relation to the broader mission. So I create ERGs with intention. They're not just an informal group. People aren't just getting on Zoom and chit-chatting and having a good time. They're an employee-led, leadership-supported group and space. to center people with shared experiences. Um, they can come together and really determine and define, what do we want our workspace to look like? What do we want it to feel like? What do we need from each other? They really create priorities and focus and experiences that they feel like everybody wants to see. So they've really become the voice for everybody that works at that organization. And so what I've seen with ERGs, the response is powerful. The staff begin to feel seen again. They create spaces for, like I said, connection, storytelling, laughing, solidarity. They play games together. They do book clubs. They share knowledge. The biggest piece of that is that they feel grounded because they can control it. They feel seen, there's cross collaboration, and there's increased engagement with that. So ERGs are something that really just reaffirm that people are connected with each other and connected to the work. And pretty much in every organization, I've created something like that. Now, there's different types of them. You can just do them for staff. You can do them based on identity group and things like that. But the key is all are welcome. And I think everybody's looking for that space to go in and say, oh, it's not just me. And oh, I'm in this together with you. So that's something I've created that's in response to this, because there's just not opportunities for people to be, I love that water cooler chat comment. We don't do water cooler chat very often anymore. So how do you replicate that in different ways? And creating ERGs really help do that.
Okay, novice question. Are ERGs mostly built out through that HR department or person, or can anyone really develop an ERG?
Great question. Both. So
Okay.
the ERG I'm creating right now is I came up with the idea, going to create some structure and make some recommendations, and then I turn them loose. So I in my current nonprofit, I've created the ERG, but when I was in a larger organization, staff can create ERGs. Absolutely, based on shared experiences. And I know one ERG, it was funny. I think it was for an organization, Greenhouse. They actually had an ERG that was for working parents. And as they worked through it, they started to realize, like, wait a minute, is that the best way to identify this group? And they realized they forgot about caregivers, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
instead, they renamed their ERG to Full House.
I love that.
Isn't that
And that,
cute? But
yeah.
again, it was a journey. It was an evolution. It was, okay, let's create this ERG. We're unified, but they're like, but wait a minute, there's more and it's bigger. Let's bring in more people. So I think anybody can create one, but it's an evolving journey of making sure it's as inclusive as possible.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you, because I kind of felt silly asking that question, but I thought, I've worked with so many small to mid-sized nonprofits that don't have an in-house HR person. They might be working with a contractor. And so really, like, who's driving that? How do we build that in if we feel that that's a need? Which kind of takes me to my next question I want to ask you about, how are you seeing organizations balancing the need right now for this operational efficiency and the investment, right, in professional development? Because I still hear from so many professionals, they desire that and there's no budget for it. So how are you seeing this being balanced and hopefully in a positive way?
Yeah, this is a tough one because my experience has shown me that keeping them separate, I don't like to see them separate, and you really can't have one without the other, because if your people aren't evolving, you might run smoothly for a little bit, your systems run pretty good for a while, but when challenges come up, COVID, or where we are right now,
Right.
it's going to be hard for people to adapt and take initiative and see the bigger picture because they haven't been evolving and growing. So they don't necessarily know what to do. So the only time that I've seen that work in giving people those tools and resources when you invest in their growth. And again, it's not always necessarily about dollars. It could be done in different ways of mentorship, getting books, bringing the ERG and bringing in speakers and things like that. So I know in nonprofits, we're trying to stretch every dollar. I
Yep.
get it. I get it. But I think when sometimes organizations get in trouble when we treat professional development as a nice to have instead of it's like a core strategy. And one of my favorite executives, it's the CEO of Motley Fool. His name's Doug Gardner, I believe. And I went to like a startup, a nonprofit presentation, and they were talking to him about, how did you get this organization going? What were your priorities when you were building this organization? And one of the number one things this person said was, you need to bring in people to talk to your organization about learning. He goes, frequently, consistently, and early on. He goes, it has to be a part of your culture and a part of how you run business and your organization. So, what we do at the current organization I'm at and at organizations I work is we really start to focus on, okay, growth instead of output. Okay. Not did you just get it done, but what did you learn? What do you want to grow next? What does that look like for you? How can I help you find a mentorship there? Because the statistics show us a lot of and people from underrepresented groups don't have mentors. They haven't had that professional development opportunity. So really, it's about writing the opportunities and also making sure you're stress testing the organization as well. And you're giving individuals, especially leadership, the tools and resources so they know, okay, when it gets bad, when it gets real bad, I know what to do. It doesn't mean it's easy, but I have an idea of how to navigate that and making sure it's sustainable and I'm not reactive to when things get hard.
Ooh, I like that answer. And you're right. Like, it's hard to have one without the other, right? Like, how are we providing efficiency and how are we providing sustainability if we're not pouring into our leaders at the same time? It's kind of the chicken and the egg, right?
Yep.
Which came
Yep.
first? All right. What about sustainability? What does sustainability of your current organization and the ones you're working with, Erica, what does that currently look like? And then how are they really defining sustainability, right? And how are they making decisions with a focus on sustainability in mind right now?
Yeah. So, for me, it's sustainability is about being able to keep doing the work well, even when the world around you shifts, right? I think I was talking to you or somebody the other day about, I can't remember the word you used, but I call it contingency planning, scenario planning. Um, it's really about, like I said, making the decisions that just don't get you through, day to day. It's about taking into account how is your team doing? How is the culture holding up? Are you building something that's beyond you? Are you building something that's beyond this one leader, this one moment, this one funder, right? If we lose this funder, are we still going to be okay? Like, what do we do that? And so from my perspective in an HR lens, a big part of that is just asking, right? Are our people burnt out? Are they engaged? Are we pushing? Or are we pushing them to develop? Do we support them? Are we helping them grow? If our people aren't well, they might be in constant survival mode, right? And nothing, I can tell you right now, if you're in survival mode, barely making it by, it's not, what you build isn't going to last. It's just not. It's for right now. And so when I think about it, I think about the decisions I make with sustainability in mind. I think about our policies. Are they fair? Are they scalable? That's the biggest thing I say to organizations. And I'm like, okay, this works for when you're 20 people. Does this work when you're 120 people? Do we need to look at that? Are you building clear paths for leadership? Because the biggest thing that people are asking for, in addition to other things, is what's in it for me? How can I grow? How do I get to the next level, right? Who's coming next, right? You should be building that in there as well. I would say you need to make sure that you have multiple voices at the table, right? I always tell people when I had teams underneath me, I would hire people that were very different from me. First off, I would hire people who were different from me, and I would hire people who were smarter than me. Go
Right.
figure, right? Do that. But it helps to peel back things that you don't see, because it's impossible as a leader to know everything about everything all the time. It's just no way. So that's when you bring in people to help kind of peel that back so you see that. And are we doing things that help people stay connected to the mission and to each other? Right. I think that sometimes as nonprofits, the mission is so strong and you're helping people, but you also got to make sure people are connected to it and they see their why and they see their part in it. I love an engagement survey. I think that it's important to listen, adapt, and create spaces where people actually want to stay, right? Go figure. I want people to stay. And I tell people, I'm like, engagement scores are great, but I want you to love this workplace. It's like when you have a good experience, a customer service experience, when it's bad, you tell a ton of people. When you
Right.
good, it's like, I want you to tell everybody that you love it here. Like, what does that look like? And I think at the end of the day, it's really sustainability is staying rooted in your values and remaining flexible. I'm a visual person. I think sustainability is like a big old tree with deep roots, but the leaves blow and change as need be. You're always rooted, you're always grounded, and people know and are connected to those roots in some way, shape, or form. So, I always say, can we keep doing this in a really healthy, inclusive way that's meaningful, not just today, but for the long term? And so I'm always kind of keeping my eye on that. And it sounds like it's a moving target, and it actually is, because I think there's 7 or 8 generations in the workplace right now. That's a lot.
Wow.
That's a lot. So how are you making sure that you're meeting the needs of all these different types of workers? It requires being adaptable and making sure it's sustainable when things change.
Wow. Well, and I love your visual of the tree. I am also very visual, Erica. So seeing the tree, I mean, I could see it, right? And it's just like deep, rich roots into the soil and the branches and the flourishing of the leaves. And you're right, they move, they change, they all have a different pattern in and of their own unique self. So I have loved our conversation. I'm sure our listeners have as well. And how I want to, make sure that people know how to get in touch with you. So how can people learn more about you, Erica, and the organizations in which you help, but those that maybe they're like, we could use your help. We could use some of this too. So where should people look for you?
Oh, thank you. You can go to my website, civilianconnections.com. I work with a lot of individuals in the veteran space, and I am a civilian, so that's what that means. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Erica Scott as well. And then you can send me an email, erica.scott@civilianconnections.com. You can learn more about the consulting I do in the veteran space. I'd love to get veterans hired. That's my purpose and passion in this world. But I also do a lot of HR consulting. I build HR teams. I help HR teams grow and evolve and make sure they're sustainable as well and connected to that mission. I'm all things people, because I'm a big believer, if people aren't here, the work ain't getting done. You might as well be happy while you're here. So that's what I do.
Ooh, thank you. So for all of you, definitely look up Erica, see if there's something she can help you with. But first, before we sign off, Erica, one final question. I always like to ask, is there a certain takeaway that you would want to share with our leaders listening to today? Any final words or sage advice that you want to leave them with?
Yeah, if you have an opportunity to step into a leadership role or are in a leadership role, it is a huge undertaking. And I want to give all of you some applause and praise right now, because leading right now, I say we're leading through times of crisis right now. And that's not easy, because you got to take care of yourself, take care of your people, and take care of the organization, right? That's not easy. But I would also say, when you're in a leadership role, you have an opportunity to really be transformative and have an impact on the lives of the people that report to you. You can have them walk away and it be the most fulfilling, joyful, inspirational, forward thinking. I know what I'm going to do in this world, and I'm going to take off and fly away like a bird out of the nest. And you're building a legacy. That's not the goal, but you hope that somebody calls you back one day and says, you really changed my life, and I wanted to say thank you. Or it can be hard. And I know sometimes, we're doing the best we can, but as a leadership, you have a lot of power. You have a lot of authority. You have a lot of say in the trajectory of someone's professional career. And there are times where I talk to people, and it's that one leader, it's that one moment that made them second guess or question or choose to give up. And I would say, just remember that. And so when you step into that role or you step into the office, your people know you better than you know yourself. And they know that what you're capable of, and they know why you're there. I would say always remember your why, and always remember that you're here to be in support of them and to really make sure you're sending them into the world and making it a better place. And so I would leave you with that, and leave you with, it's a huge responsibility, and just always remember that you're making an impact on your people.
Yes, you are. How beautiful. Erica, thank you. Everything you've said has left a wonderful imprint on me. And again, I'm sure to all of the listeners. So thank you for sharing your insights.
You're welcome.